The CHRONOVISOR is one of the most fascinating mysteries to have emerged within the context of the Catholic Church. According to Father Pellegrino Ernetti's account, this device supposedly had the ability to display past events as if they were happening in the present. Imagine a machine that could allow us to watch, with perfect clarity, pivotal historical moments, such as the crucifixion of Jesus Christ, or the speeches of political leaders in ancient Rome. This idea, besides being innovative, challenges our perception of time and history. The concept of the CHRONOVISOR itself seems like something straight out of a science fiction novel, but Ernetti, a highly respected exorcist and scholar in the Vatican, declared that the device was real. According to him, the apparatus was created by a group of scientists and theologians under the supervision and funding of the Vatican. The machine allegedly had the capacity to capture the electromagnetic waves generated by past events and convert them into images and sounds, allowing people to directly view the past. Although it was never shown to the public, the CHRONOVISOR continues to spark speculation to this day. If it truly existed, it would be a revolution, not only in the field of science, but also in the religious sphere. The possibility of confirming or disproving the events described in the scriptures with absolute accuracy could forever change the way we perceive faith and history. However, the Catholic Church is said to have chosen to keep the device a secret, fearing the repercussions it could bring to humanity. The decision to keep the CHRONOVISOR hidden raises many questions about the Church's role in controlling knowledge. Why would an institution that promotes truth and faith fear a machine capable of revealing history so clearly? This opens the door to conspiracy theories and questions about the real motives behind the Vatican's decision. For many, the CHRONOVISOR has become a symbol of power and control. Another interesting aspect is the fusion between science and faith that the CHRONOVISOR represents. The device, as Ernetti explained, was developed based on scientific principles, but its purpose was religious. This combination of science and mysticism still provokes debate. How could such advanced technology have been developed in an environment dominated by faith? And more importantly, why was this technology never made available to the public? The enigma of the CHRONOVISOR also leads us to reflect on the concept of time. If past events can be observed, did they really disappear? The machine suggests that everything that has ever happened still exists in some form, waiting to be rediscovered. This idea challenges traditional notions of time as something linear and irreversible, opening new ways of understanding the universe and our relationship with it. In short, the CHRONOVISOR continues to fascinate precisely because it remains shrouded in secrecy. Without concrete evidence, and only the accounts of Ernetti and a few colleagues, the device has turned into a legend, a mystery hovering between the real and the imaginary. Whether it existed or not, the impact of this story on our view of science, faith, and power is undeniable, leaving a legacy that is still discussed today. Father Pellegrino Ernetti was a unique figure within the Catholic Church. Born in 1925, he was not only a devout priest, but also a respected scholar in various fields of knowledge, including ancient music and exorcism. His life and career were marked by an unrelenting quest for understanding both the spiritual and scientific worlds, which placed him in a prominent position both inside and outside the Vatican. Ernetti began his career as a specialist in Gregorian chant, dedicating himself to the study of ancient music and the recovery of lost compositions. He was one of the foremost experts in pre-polyphony, meaning music that predates the development of modern harmony. His skill in ancient music led him to be invited to work on musical preservation projects in the Vatican, where his reputation as a serious and dedicated academic grew quickly. In addition to his work in music, Ernetti also stood out as an exorcist. He was one of the most sought-after exorcists in Italy, known for handling cases of demonic possession with remarkable calm and skill. For years, he performed exorcisms across the country, earning the respect of even the famous Father Gabriel Amorth, the Vatican's official exorcist. To Ernetti, the spiritual world was just as real as the physical world, and his deep faith guided every step of his journey. However, Ernetti was not just a man of faith. He was also an intellectual deeply interested in the sciences, especially quantum physics. His curious mind led him to study the connection between the physical and spiritual worlds. This eventually led him to the development of the CHRONOVISOR, a machine he believed could unite science and faith by providing concrete proof of biblical and historical events. The development of the CHRONOVISOR was a turning point in Ernetti's life. He had always been a respected figure, but his statements about the time machine began to raise doubts and controversy. Many, both within the church and in the scientific community, began to question his credibility. How could someone so dedicated to faith and science defend something so extraordinary without presenting proof? Ernetti's reputation became the subject of debate, but he maintained his conviction until the end. Despite the mystery surrounding the chronovisor, Ernetti left a lasting legacy. His work with ancient music continues to be respected, and his dedication to exorcism made him a figure of great reverence within the church. However, the chronovisor overshadowed part of his story, wrapping his life in mystery. Ernetti was not just a man of faith and science, but also an enigma, someone who lived at the boundaries between the known and the unknown. What makes Ernetti such a fascinating figure is precisely this duality. He was both a scientist and a man of faith, someone who believed in the union of these two worlds. His life leads us to question where science ends and faith begins, and to what extent it is possible to reconcile these two dimensions of human experience. Even after his death, Ernetti's legacy continues to challenge conventional conceptions of reality and spirituality. The meeting between Father Pellegrino Ernetti and French theologian François Brune in 1964 was the starting point for the revelation of the chronovisor. The two met by chance in Venice while waiting for the Vaporetto, the city's public transportation boat. This casual meeting would soon become one of the most important moments in the history of the chronovisor, as it was during this conversation that Ernetti began to share details about his secret project. Brune, a renowned scholar of ancient languages and theology, had a deep interest in interpreting the scriptures. He was particularly frustrated with the growing trend within the church to interpret sacred texts purely symbolically or allegorically. For Brune, this approach undermined the spiritual truth of the Gospels and other religious texts. Upon hearing Ernetti agree with his concerns, Brune immediately felt drawn to this new friendship. During their conversation, Ernetti mentioned for the first time the existence of a machine that could eliminate any doubt about the authenticity of the scriptures. He suggested that with the use of the chronovisor, it would be possible to watch the events described in the Bible with one's own eyes. To Brune, this seemed like the perfect solution to the theological debates that were dividing the church at the time. However, he remained skeptical of the proposal. Ernetti, however, spoke with impressive conviction. He wasn't merely speculating about the existence of the chronovisor. He claimed that he had already used the device and witnessed historical events with his own eyes. This certainty, combined with the respect Ernetti commanded within the Vatican, made Brune take his claims seriously. They agreed to meet again to discuss the matter more thoroughly. The following day, the two priests met at the San Giorgio Maggiore monastery in Venice. It was there that Ernetti began to detail how the chronovisor worked and how it was developed. Brune listened attentively, fascinated by the idea of a machine that could capture the past and reveal the truth with absolute precision. Although skeptical, he couldn't ignore the strength of Ernetti's conviction. This friendship between Brune and Ernetti lasted for decades, and Brune became one of the greatest defenders of the chronovisor's existence. He believed that Ernetti was sincere and that his invention could change the world if revealed. Brune, in turn, also paid a price for this belief, frequently facing criticism for supporting an idea that seemed so unlikely. Nonetheless, he stood by Ernetti's side until his friend's death. The meeting between these two priests was undoubtedly the starting point for the chronovisor mystery to be disclosed. Without Brune's curiosity and openness, it's possible that Ernetti might never have revealed the machine's secrets. The friendship between them demonstrates how human connections can be catalysts for great mysteries and revelations, especially when they involve such profound themes as faith, history, and science. The origin of the chronovisor traces back to an extraordinary event that occurred in the early 1950s. Father Ernetti was involved in an experiment in the laboratory of the Catholic University of Milan, along with his colleague, Father Agostino Gemelli. Together, they were trying to record Gregorian chants using an old wire recording technique. During this process, something unexpected happened, something that would forever change Ernetti's course. During the recording, the equipment began to malfunction. Frustrated, Gemelli, a deeply religious man, invoked the spirit of his deceased father, asking for help. To both their surprise, when they restarted the equipment, the recording captured not only the Gregorian chants, but also the clear voice of a man calling Gemelli by his childhood nickname, Zucchini. The voice seemed to come from beyond the grave. Both priests were stunned by what they heard. This incident raised deep questions for Ernetti and Gemelli. How could a device capture something from beyond the physical world, the voice of someone who had already passed away? What initially seemed like a supernatural phenomenon was brought to the attention of Pope Pius XIV, who, instead of condemning it, suggested it was a scientific, not spiritual phenomenon. This statement from the Pope was the spark that inspired Ernetti to begin considering the creation of a machine that could go beyond the limits of traditional science. From that point on, Ernetti began exploring the idea that sound and light, and perhaps even matter itself, did not completely disappear, but left traces in the universe. He theorized that, with the right technology, it would be possible to tune in to these residual waves and bring back past events. This idea planted the seed for the development of the CHRONOVISOR, a device capable of capturing these waves and converting them into images and sounds from the past. Inspired by modern science, especially quantum physics and the principle of energy conservation, Ernetti began gathering a team of scientists and theologians to help him develop the machine. Among them were renowned figures such as physicist Enrico Fermi and engineer Wernher von Braun, who played key roles in the creation of the CHRONOVISOR. The collaboration between these brilliant minds, along with the support of the Vatican, marked the beginning of one of the most ambitious projects ever conducted in secrecy. The development of the CHRONOVISOR was not just a scientific journey, but also a spiritual quest for Ernetti. He saw the device as a way to prove the truth of the scriptures and offer the world concrete evidence of the events described in the Bible. For him, this was a divine mission, something that could forever change humanity's understanding of history and faith. However, he was also aware of the risks involved in such an endeavor. Thus, the origin of the CHRONOVISOR is rooted in a supernatural event, but was shaped by both science and faith. Ernetti believed he was on a mission to unite these two dimensions and bring light to the world. However, the path he followed was filled with challenges, and the implications of his discovery would eventually shake both the Church and the very concept of time and reality. The operation of the CHRONOVISOR, as described by Ernetti, was both simple and astonishing. He compared the device to a television, but with a fundamental difference. Instead of receiving signals from current broadcasts, the CHRONOVISOR captured the remaining waves of past events. These waves, according to Ernetti, remained present in space-time and could be tuned into and decoded, allowing the recreation of images and sounds from historical moments. The CHRONOVISOR was composed of several special antennas that captured these waves, along with a device that decoded them and transformed them into three-dimensional images accompanied by sound. It was like watching a live broadcast of events that had occurred hundreds or thousands of years ago. Ernetti claimed to have seen scenes from ancient Rome, speeches by great leaders, and even moments from the life of Jesus Christ. However, the CHRONOVISOR was not perfect. Ernetti admitted that in some cases, the captured images were distorted or incomplete, especially for older events, such as the crucifixion of Christ. This raised doubts about the accuracy of the device. Could the waves from the past have been fragmented or interfered with by other factors? Or were these limitations of the CHRONOVISOR's own technology? Another intriguing question raised by the CHRONOVISOR's operation is the ethics of its use. If it was possible to view any past event, it would mean that privacy, even for historical figures, would no longer exist. Everything would be exposed, with no secrets hidden. This power to access the past could easily be manipulated by people with less noble intentions, raising the issue of who had the right to use such technology. The CHRONOVISOR also challenges our understanding of time. If past events can still be accessed, does that mean they truly ended? The machine suggests that time is not linear, but rather a series of overlapping layers, where everything that has ever happened is still present, waiting to be tuned into. This challenges not only the laws of physics, but also the way we perceive reality. Ultimately, the workings of the CHRONOVISOR remain an unsolved mystery. Even with Ernetti's detailed descriptions, there has never been concrete proof that the device truly existed or was used as he claimed. However, the idea of a machine capable of capturing the past continues to fascinate, precisely because it taps into a deep human desire to understand and perhaps even relive history. The development of the CHRONOVISOR was not the work of a single man. Although Father Ernetti was the main architect of the device, he had the support of some of the greatest scientists of his time. Among them was none other than Enrico Fermi, a renowned physicist who had won the Nobel Prize for his contributions to nuclear physics. According to Ernetti, Fermi's involvement in the project was crucial to understanding how electromagnetic waves could be captured and converted into images from the past. Fermi, Famous for his work on the Manhattan Project, which developed the first atomic bomb, was one of the brightest minds of his time. His participation in the development of the CHRONOVISOR, if true, raises intriguing questions about the potential of the device. Fermi had extensive knowledge of the laws of physics, and his work with nuclear energy may have helped Ernetti create the system to capture temporal waves. Another name associated with the CHRONOVISOR was that of Wernher von Braun, the German engineer who became a central figure in the development of NASA's rocket technology. Von Braun, like Fermi, was a brilliant mind with a deep understanding of engineering and physics. Ernetti claimed that von Braun made essential technical contributions to the construction of the CHRONOVISOR. In addition to these two scientific giants, Ernetti also mentioned other collaborators, such as a Portuguese professor specializing in acoustic physics and a Japanese theoretical physicist, possibly Hideki Yukawa, another Nobel laureate. The team formed by these scientists and Ernetti seemed to be a diverse group with complementary expertise, all necessary for the development of such a complex machine. However, the involvement of figures like Fermi and von Braun was never officially confirmed. Their contributions to the CHRONOVISOR remain within the realm of Ernetti's claims, without evidence to support them. This leads many skeptics to question whether these great names really participated in the project, or if Ernetti mentioned them to add credibility to his story. Either way, the idea that two of the greatest scientists of the 20th century were involved in such a mysterious device is fascinating. Regardless of the truth, the association of these prominent names with the CHRONOVISOR adds to the mystery. If the device was truly developed, it would represent one of the greatest collaborations between science and faith ever undertaken. However, the lack of concrete evidence keeps everything in the realm of speculation, which only contributes to fueling the fascination and intrigue surrounding this story. The presence of such renowned figures in the CHRONOVISOR project raises further questions about the relationship between science and religion. Were these scientists aware of the spiritual implications of the device, or did they see the CHRONOVISOR merely as another scientific tool? The truth, like so many other aspects of this story, remains hidden, waiting to be revealed or debunked. Among the many surprising claims made by Ernetti, one of the most intriguing is that the CHRONOVISOR was used to directly observe some of the most important events in history. According to him, the machine allowed him and others to witness, for example, crucial moments from the life of Jesus Christ, including the Last Supper and, most impressively, the crucifixion itself. According to Ernetti, these events were seen with striking clarity, as if they were watching a live broadcast from the past. Ernetti also claimed that, besides biblical events, the CHRONOVISOR was able to capture scenes of great historical significance. He reported having watched speeches by influential figures such as Benito Mussolini and Napoleon Bonaparte, as well as events from ancient Rome, including the speeches of Marcus Tullius Cicero. The scene of Cicero, in particular, caught Ernetti's attention for the way the CHRONOVISOR accurately captured his posture and tone, bringing the famous Roman orator to life in an unprecedented way. These claims raise fascinating questions about the accuracy of the images captured by the CHRONOVISOR. Were these representations faithful recreations of the past, or were they subject to technological distortions or interferences? Ernetti himself admitted that some of the images captured by the CHRONOVISOR seemed influenced by later cultural and artistic interpretations. One example was the scenes of Christ's crucifixion, which appeared to align with medieval depictions, suggesting a possible distortion in the capture. The possibility of witnessing these historical events raises a series of ethical and theological questions. If the CHRONOVISOR truly offered a window into the past, it could be used to confirm or refute the events described in the scriptures. This would have a profound impact on the faith of millions of people worldwide. The very idea of revisiting moments from Jesus' life could challenge traditional interpretations and force the Church to reconsider centuries of doctrine. On the other hand, the CHRONOVISOR could also be used for secular purposes, such as observing political, military, or cultural events. The ability to examine any moment in history with accuracy could completely transform the study of history and archaeology. However, this could also raise concerns about how such power would be used. Who would have the right to access these events? Who would control the historical narratives that would emerge from these new discoveries? Ernetti and his team supposedly witnessed several other historical events, but he refused to provide further details. What he did share, however, was enough to generate enduring fascination around the CHRONOVISOR. Even without concrete physical evidence, The idea of a machine that can observe the past continues to capture the imagination of many people around the world. Ernetti's stories, though impossible to verify, invite us to imagine a world where the past is not lost, but can be accessed. To this day, these accounts remain shrouded in mystery. The images and recordings that Ernetti claimed to have seen or heard were never presented to the public, leaving the chronovisor on the border between myth and reality. Nevertheless, the implications of Ernetti's claims continue to provoke debates and speculation. If the chronovisor were real, it would not only change human history, but also raise profound questions about the nature of time and reality. One of the most controversial moments in the saga of the chronovisor involves the famous photograph of Christ's crucifixion, which Father Ernetti claimed to have captured using the device. The image was first published in an Italian newspaper in the 1970s and, according to Ernetti, showed Jesus Christ in his final moments on the cross. The photo quickly became a central point of debate and curiosity, generating both excitement and skepticism. At first glance, the photograph seemed like concrete, tangible evidence of the chronovisor's existence. It was a clear and impressive image of Christ, captured from an angle that seemed impossible to recreate otherwise. For chronovisor supporters, this photo was definitive proof that the device worked and that Ernetti had truly witnessed the crucifixion. However, it didn't take long for doubts about its authenticity to arise. Scholars and journalists began investigating the origin of the image and discovered that it was strikingly similar to a devotional sculpture on display at a sanctuary in the Italian town of Colle Valenza. When comparing the two, it became evident that the photo published by Ernetti was almost identical to the sculpture, leading many to conclude that the photograph was not a capture from the chronovisor, but a reproduction or manipulation of the artwork. This brought significant doubt to Ernetti's claims. When confronted with this evidence, Ernetti offered a complicated explanation. He admitted that the published photo was not, in fact, the original image captured by the chronovisor, but an approximate recreation of what he and his colleagues had seen. Ernetti claimed that the Colle Valenza sculpture had been inspired by a religious vision experienced by Mother Esperanza, a stigmatized nun who had received divine visions. According to Ernetti, the sculpture was an accurate representation of the crucifixion, and the similarity to the photograph was no coincidence. However, this explanation was not enough to restore Ernetti's credibility. Many critics viewed the photograph as a fraud and began questioning whether the entire concept of the chronovisor was a fabrication. To them, if Ernetti was willing to present a manipulated image as evidence, what else could he have fabricated? The photograph of the crucifixion, which initially seemed like concrete proof, ended up being the biggest blow to Ernetti's credibility and the mystery of the chronovisor. Despite this, Ernetti never abandoned his claim that the chronovisor was real. Even after the controversy surrounding the photograph, he continued to assert that he had witnessed the crucifixion and other historical events. The controversy over the image raised larger questions about the reliability of evidence and the nature of faith. Ernetti, a man of deep spirituality, seemed determined to defend the existence of the chronovisor, even in the face of contradictory proof. Today, the photograph of the crucifixion remains a point of debate. While many have dismissed the image as a fraud, the mystery surrounding the chronovisor persists. Even if the photo was falsified, it does not completely settle the question of whether the chronovisor existed. For some, the image is just one piece of a much larger story, a puzzle that has yet to be fully solved. Beyond the controversial photograph of the crucifixion, another piece of evidence Ernetti presented to prove the existence of the chronovisor was the transcription of the tragedy Thyestes, a lost classical work by the Roman poet Quintus Ennius, written around 169 BC. Ernetti claimed that, using the chronovisor, he had managed to watch a performance of the play in ancient Rome and transcribe the complete text, which had until then been considered irretrievably lost. If true, this discovery would have been monumental for the academic world. The tragedy, Thyestes, was known to historians and scholars of Roman literature only through fragments and references in other texts, but the full text had never been found. The idea that the chronovisor allowed for the recovery of this lost work was received with great interest, but also skepticism, especially among scholars of the Latin language. The main criticism of the Thyestes transcription came from Latin specialists who analyzed the text presented by Ernetti. Some scholars argued that the style and vocabulary used in the transcription were not consistent with the language of Ennius's time. The text contained words that only appeared in Latin centuries later, leading many to suspect that the work was a modern forgery, or at the very least, had been altered. Ernetti, however, defended the authenticity of the transcription. He claimed that any linguistic discrepancies could be attributed to the difficulties of transcribing such an ancient text, especially in an unconventional format like that of the CHRONOVISOR. To him, the fact that he had managed to watch the play and recover a lost text was unquestionable proof that the CHRONOVISOR worked. Nonetheless, these explanations were not enough to convince the academic community. Despite the criticisms, the Thyestes transcription remains one of the main mysteries involving the CHRONOVISOR. If the text were truly authentic, it would represent one of the greatest literary discoveries of the 20th century. However, the lack of clear evidence and the suspicions of manipulation undermine the credibility of the claim. Like the photograph of the crucifixion, the Thyestes transcription has become a symbol of the doubts surrounding the CHRONOVISOR. Professor François Brune, who was a friend of Ernetti and also a scholar of ancient languages, defended Ernetti's sincerity until the end. He believed that, even if there were discrepancies in the transcription, that did not mean the CHRONOVISOR did not work. For Brune, the attempt to discredit Ernetti was part of a larger effort to suppress the discoveries made by him and his team. This view continues to fuel conspiracy theories about the CHRONOVISOR. As with the photograph, the Thyestes transcription remains a point of controversy that leaves many questions unanswered. While critics are quick to dismiss the work as a forgery, there are those who continue to believe that, in some way, Ernetti managed to access the past and recover something lost to humanity. The debate surrounding this transcription persists as part of the larger mystery of the CHRONOVISOR. One of the most intriguing and controversial aspects of the CHRONOVISOR story is the supposed involvement of the Vatican in the development and subsequent dismantling of the machine. According to Ernetti, the CHRONOVISOR was created with the direct support of the Vatican, under the supervision of Pope Pius V. The original idea was to use the device to confirm the truth of biblical events and reinforce Catholic faith at a time of growing skepticism following World War II. As the project progressed, it became clear to those involved that the CHRONOVISOR had far greater potential than merely validating religious stories. The machine allowed access to any moment in the past, not just biblical events. This meant the CHRONOVISOR could be used to uncover historical, political, and personal secrets, something that could radically transform the power that institutions, including the Vatican itself, had over the historical narrative. Ernetti claimed that upon realizing this, the Vatican began to fear the impact the CHRONOVISOR could have on humanity. If the machine fell into the wrong hands, it could be used for dangerous purposes, such as historical espionage, manipulation of past events, or exposing secrets that might threaten global stability. For this reason, according to Ernetti, the Vatican decided to dismantle the CHRONOVISOR and hide all its parts and plans in secure locations. This decision to conceal the CHRONOVISOR raises several ethical and philosophical questions. Who has the right to decide what humanity can or cannot know about its own past? Did the Vatican, a religious institution, have the moral authority to suppress such a revolutionary technology? And what if the CHRONOVISOR could be used to promote peace and truth instead of posing a threat? These questions continue to echo in debates about the existence and impact of the CHRONOVISOR. Although the Vatican has never officially acknowledged the existence of the CHRONOVISOR, this dismantling narrative has fueled numerous conspiracy theories. Some of these theories suggest that the CHRONOVISOR was never truly destroyed, but is being kept in secret within the Vatican archives, accessible only to a select few. Other theories claim that the device was dismantled, but its plans still exist and could be used to rebuild it in the future. This decision to hide the CHRONOVISOR also raises questions about the Catholic Church's role in controlling knowledge. If the CHRONOVISOR really existed, why did the Church decide that humanity was not ready for such technology? Was this decision made out of fear of what the machine might reveal, or were there other interests at play? Many believe the CHRONOVISOR could expose inconvenient truths that the Church would prefer to keep hidden. Either way, the Vatican's alleged decision to dismantle the CHRONOVISOR and hide its parts contributes to the enduring fascination surrounding this story. If the device was truly developed, it would have been one of the greatest discoveries in human history. However, the fear of its impact relegated it to the realm of the Catholic Church's most closely guarded secrets, leaving the world to wonder what could have been. In the final years of his life, Father Pellegrino Ernetti was embroiled in various controversies and criticisms over his claims about the CHRONOVISOR. Many accused him of fraud, especially after revelations that the photograph of Christ's crucifixion appeared to be a forgery. However, up until his dying breath, Ernetti maintained that the chronovisor was real. But it was on his deathbed that he made a mysterious confession, complicating the enigma surrounding the chronovisor even further. In 1994, shortly before his death, Ernetti allegedly admitted to a close relative that he had forged part of the evidence related to the chronovisor. This anonymous confession, made public years later, revealed that Ernetti had created the transcription of the tragedy Thyestes and that the photograph of the crucifixion was not authentic. For many, this confession seemed like confirmation that the entire chronovisor story was a hoax. However, the confession was not as straightforward as it seemed. Ernetti claimed that although some of the evidence was falsified, the chronovisor itself was real. He justified his actions by saying he was under intense pressure to provide concrete proof of something that was difficult to document. For him, the machine worked, but he could not prove it convincingly, so he resorted to fabricating evidence in hopes of validating his discoveries. This confession further divided scholars and researchers interested in the chronovisor. On one hand, many believed that the admission of falsification was enough to dismiss the entire story as an elaborate invention. On the other hand, there were those, like Father François Brun, who believed that Ernetti's confession was only a half-truth. For Brun, Ernetti was forced to admit something to protect his reputation, but the chronovisor remained a reality. Ernetti's confession also raised suspicions about the possible involvement of the Vatican in pressuring him to remain silent about the chronovisor. According to some sources, Ernetti had been forbidden by his superiors from speaking publicly about the device, which may have contributed to his use of forged evidence as a way of keeping the project secret. This theory further fueled speculation that the chronovisor was such a dangerous technology that the Vatican preferred to keep it hidden. Despite the inconsistencies and contradictions in Ernetti's confession, it did not completely resolve the mystery surrounding the chronovisor. If the device really existed, why did Ernetti feel the need to fabricate evidence? Was this a reflection of the burden he carried in trying to prove something so extraordinary? Or was it simply a way to cover up the fact that the chronovisor never existed, a creation of a man desperate for validation? In the end, Ernetti's deathbed confession only added another layer of mystery to the already complex story of the chronovisor. Instead of providing a clear conclusion, it left more questions than answers. And so, Ernetti's legacy continues to challenge those who seek the truth, keeping the chronovisor one of the greatest enigmas of both the Catholic Church and modern science. If the chronovisor truly existed, its impact on Christian faith and modern science would be immeasurable. The possibility of a machine capable of accessing the past and revealing historical events with precision would shake the foundations of many religious beliefs, especially those based on oral traditions and sacred texts. For the Catholic Church, which deeply values mystery and faith, the chronovisor could be both a blessing and a threat. On one hand, the chronovisor could provide concrete proof of biblical events. The crucifixion and resurrection of Christ, for example, could be seen with clarity, confirming the veracity of the Gospels. This could strengthen the faith of millions of Christians around the world, offering visual and historical validation of their beliefs. At the same time, the machine could resolve centuries of theological disputes over the interpretation of the Scriptures, providing a definitive answer to many issues that divide religious scholars. On the other hand, the chronovisor could also reveal inconsistencies or errors in religious narratives. If certain biblical events did not happen as described in the Scriptures, this could profoundly shake the faith of many. The risk of exposing inaccuracies or myths that have upheld millennia-old religious traditions could be devastating for the Church. This uncertainty might be one of the reasons why the Vatican, if indeed involved, decided to hide or dismantle the chronovisor. From a scientific perspective, the chronovisor represents a challenge to the known laws of physics and time. The idea that past events still exist in the form of waves and can be recovered with the right technology defies our understanding of the universe. If the machine worked as described, it could open doors to new discoveries in areas such as quantum physics, relativity, and even the philosophy of time. Moreover, the ability to observe past events could completely transform the study of history. Archaeologists, historians, and scientists could use the chronovisor to verify theories, correct historical errors, and accurately understand what really happened in crucial moments of human history. However, this technology also raises ethical concerns about how it would be used and who would have the power to control it. The CHRONOVISOR also touches on broader philosophical questions about the nature of reality. If the past can be accessed, as if it were happening now, does that mean it never truly disappeared? And what does that tell us about the present and the future? Ernetti's machine, if real, suggests that time is much more fluid and malleable than we imagine, and that our understanding of historical events may be only a small part of a much larger picture. Ultimately, the potential impact of the CHRONOVISOR on faith and science is one of the factors that makes this story so fascinating. It forces us to question our assumptions about the world and consider the consequences of having access to such a great power. Even if the CHRONOVISOR never existed, the mere fact that it was conceived challenges us to reflect on what we would do if we could truly see the past with our own eyes.